Hey, good morning. Glad to have you back here on the Collective online experience. And today we are going to continue the look at the week leading up to everything that we celebrate at Easter with Jesus's death, burial, and resurrection. Last week we looked at like the weekend before, and then we looked at that Monday, and then a little bit. And so today we're going to kind of pick up at the triumphal entry and kind of coming in and just looking at what happened, a little bit review on Monday, and then looking at Tuesday and Wednesday, and just having an opportunity to kind of look at this season from maybe a little bit of a different perspective. But I wanted to just kind of begin by asking you the question, like, when you listen, how hard is it to take in stuff like that you're listening to? Where do you listen the easiest? And so I'd love to know in the chat, where is it easiest for you to listen? Not just hear, but where is it easiest for you to listen? And then I'd also love to know, like, where is it the most challenging to listen, to take information in? For me, it was always school. It was very difficult to listen and to take things in and to take instruction in at anything school, like any school, elementary, middle school, high school, college, seminary. All of that was kind of hard for me to listen to. Some of it may have been the format that it was presented. Some of it, most of it, I'm sure was me, but to some degree. But it was always kind of difficult for me to listen to that. Where do I listen the easiest? Movies, TV, things like that, like podcasts, like very kinetic type of listening. I tend to do a good job at, to some degree. Where is it hard for me to listen? It's hard for me to really listen as I read, which I know, or to take content in, to listen to instruction when I read. That's very difficult for me. I'd love to know where it's easiest for you to listen. I'd love to know where it's the most challenging for you to listen. Maybe it's a place, maybe it's a medium, maybe it's a format. But as we look at these next couple of days here, and as we're walking toward what we're going to get to experience as a church on Friday, April 15th, with the Passover, the Seder meal, as we celebrate Passover, and then Sunday as we come together to celebrate Easter, really want to take this opportunity just to begin by asking you, how do you take in information? How do you listen well? And where do you listen well? And why? But last week, we kind of looked at, well, we didn't kind of look at, so this idea of the triumphal entry, usually on Palm Sunday, and the day that many of these things are talked about. But as we looked at last week, as Jesus did that, I really want to look at the fact that, like, on Monday, Jesus visited the temple. And then a lot of this you can look in the Gospels. You can look in Matthew, which is where I took a lot of this. You can look in some of the different, you can look in Matthew and Mark specifically. You can look in the Gospels, especially Matthew, Mark, and Luke. But Monday, not this Monday, but the Monday that we're talking about, like, Jesus visited the temple and then returned to Bethany. Now, when Jesus came in, I'm going to be honest with you, like, I never thought about the fact that he didn't stay in Jerusalem. Like, I just was like, hey, we had the triumphal entry. Jesus is here. The people that are probably throwing down these palm as he's coming in on the animal, probably the pilgrims that have come in for the festival. But he goes back to Bethany. I always thought he just stayed in Jerusalem. Now, Bethany was about 1.72, so a little under 2 miles away from Jerusalem. So not a bad walk to be able to do. So now Tuesday. So Jesus is coming back to Jerusalem from Bethany, and he sees the fig tree and he curses the fig tree. Now, I do wonder at this point, as Jesus is just kind of helping to make this point that spiritual unfruitfulness, not seeing anything coming from the life that we were supposed to have being connected to him, like, he's warning against that. Now, I'm wondering for those that were following him, like, if he, like, what's going on with Jesus? Like, why is he spending so much time talking to this plant, to this tree? Like, why is he spending time there? I'm sure the disciples, if you think about it, they probably, over the course of the years that they followed him, there was a lot of times when they're like, what is he doing now? Like, there had to have been rumblings. There had to have been talk to be like, what is he doing? Why is he doing this? Someone's got to talk to him. But he curses his fig tree. And then once he gets back into Jerusalem, he enters the temple. He challenges a lot of the temple practices. And, through this, we begin to see, okay, so the plot begins. Like, the rumblings against Jesus were already there, but now the plot really begins. And there's a lot of thoughts that Jesus leaves again and most likely goes back to Bethany, probably again just wherever he was staying. And then, at some point, now, as he's talking to them, this is where you start seeing Matthew 22, not necessarily in Bethany, but like you start seeing Matthew chapter 22, verses 37 through 40. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and body. Love your neighbor as yourself. Like, this incredible passage that I think has a lot to do with the collective church, just because, our desire is to walk toward obedience and loving God with our heart, soul, mind, and body. Then you look on Wednesday, and Jesus goes up to the Mount of Olives. He begins speaking. He had already done some, but he is speaking in these parables. Jesus predicts that in 2 days he's going to be crucified. Like, all this stuff is amping up and starting to happen. And so, we've seen the triumphal entry. We've seen Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. He's going back and forth from Jerusalem to Bethany and back, and he's talking to fig trees. He's going into the temple. Like, so what do we learn from Jesus here? I mean, what do we see? Well, obviously he's around people and he's instructing and teaching. That the chances are most people don't really know exactly what is about to come. Like, they don't understand that these are some of the last physical words coming out of his mouth that we're going to hear in these instructions. But man, these are the examples of what Jesus is doing as he's walking toward this incredibly dramatic point in history, like basically this turning point in history. He's instructing, he's teaching through parables and the things that he is sharing. You wonder about the walks back and forth from Bethany to Jerusalem. You wonder about the time that he is walking to the temple and from the temple, what he was even doing then that's not recorded. And when I think about me and instructions and teaching, and I'm not talking about sermons or podcasts or books that we've read now, all that's fine, but just observing Jesus. So just think about this for a second. Just your observation of Jesus and what you know of him and what you have read of what he has said and what he has done. Again, not other people's interpretation of that, but what have you learned from what Jesus has did or said in that observation? Like something that you have personally experiencing, seeing or hearing what Jesus has done, and you've learned from Jesus's actions or words. I mean, like, we're supposed to be talking about Easter, right? Like, we're supposed to be talking about what is coming up, and that's true. But at the same time, we celebrate what is coming up with Easter. I also think that we have to celebrate the fact that Jesus knew what was coming. So all this stuff that we are hearing, the parables and the things that he is sharing, like we need to celebrate the instruction and the teaching that is happening then. Not that the other instruction and teaching that Jesus has done is less important, but like we look and just see what is happening here and what he is trying to get across. Like the messages that Jesus is trying to get across. And I want you to think about it again. Like, if you were there and just put yourself walking back and forth from Bethany to Jerusalem, if you knew exactly what was coming, no question, no doubt, you had perfect knowledge of what was coming with Jesus and his cross and the cross. Everything that Jesus opened up his mouth and said, you're probably taking notes. You're probably just like, if you believed all this stuff individually, if you sensed something was coming up, you didn't know, but you sensed, you're probably more apt to listen and to take in instruction. But we don't often know, like if you think about it, then like some of those people just had no clue. And things that Jesus said or did, like there's a good chance that just all this incredible, like the parables and things we're supposed to learn from him, and this practical application that he is bringing forward, there's a good chance that people just completely missed all the wisdom and instruction and teaching in that. And it makes a lot of sense. And I think it makes a lot of sense as we walk toward Passover and Easter for us as a church, that we take time and celebrate why we even have this holiday, the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus, how that affects every day of our lives, how that affects eternity, but at the same time celebrating all that is happening over this Tuesday and Wednesday. Looking at this idea and stopping and just putting ourselves in the situation, would we have gotten what he was doing with the fig tree? Would we have gotten what he was doing walking into the temple? Will we have gotten all the parables as he's on the Mount of Olives? Like when he makes these predictions, would we have gotten it? This instruction and learning. And it makes me think about now, like, when do I completely miss Jesus? Like, when do I completely miss the instruction and teaching and the wisdom that he is trying to get across, that he's trying to help me to understand? Now, what's different is I don't get to walk physically with Jesus from town to town. I don't get to walk and see him physically do the things that his followers did back then. So is that easier or harder? I don't know. I think there's an argument that it's easier and harder either way. What I want us to focus on as we are walking toward specifically Passover and then walking toward Easter is, can we take time from Sunday to Friday and look back through the week? Look back through like chapters 21, 22, 23, 24, and on. Can we look in Matthew chapters 21, 22, 23, 24, walking toward Passover? Can we look at those and just take another opportunity to observe what Jesus is trying to get across? Walking toward this dramatic time in history, what is he trying to get across, to instruct and to teach? And how can we apply that in our lives? And how can we celebrate those things at the same time of celebrating all he is trying to do with Easter and what that's going to mean for us? So today's a little bit shorter, and I did it shorter on purpose. And the reason I did it shorter on purpose is I really want to give space. I want to give some margin that we don't know everything about, like, the way that we are going to walk the next 4 or 5 days out, because we've probably never walked toward a Passover in this where we try to connect to God in that way. And if you have, it's probably not something that you've done for your entire life. So I want to give some kind of margin and space right now that maybe it might take a little bit longer for some of us to answer the questions right now, because we're actually looking back in Matthew chapters 21, 22, 23, 24, and just kind of looking at some of the things that Jesus was saying. Maybe we're looking up on our phone, maybe we're opening up our Bibles, but just kind of looking at some of those things and see what sticks out as we are going through this chat, as we are answering the questions that are there. I would love to kind of give space. Now, some of you may not feel like that's what you need to do, but I want to give space that some of us might need to do that, just to look back and to see, like, what do we need to celebrate that he was instructing and that he was teaching and the wisdom that he was bringing? And how does that apply to us? Especially as we're knowing that he was walking toward this incredible point in history that we celebrate as Easter. But for us, as we're walking towards something that is kind of new for us as a church, well, it's extremely new for us as a church, for our individuals and families and groups. So as you go through the chat today, just want to give space that it may take a little bit longer or it may not. But would love for you just to engage with us as we walk through these questions and as we work to go toward Friday the 15th with the Passover and Sunday the 17th with Easter. Now, in the email today, there is a link there that you can click on for the PDF that we're going to go through as groups tonight. Like if you're not in a group yet and you want to walk through that with your family tonight or sometime this week, that's why it's there. If you are in a group tonight and you're just like, hey, we didn't get through everything, or it was kind of hard to process everything, then you can look at that yourself and process that the way that you need to for you or your family. And if you're not sure yet if you're even going to be able to come, and we'd love to answer any questions, but there's also an RSVP there for Friday and Sunday that if you haven't gotten a chance already, would love to do that as well. So listen, I'm excited about Passover, excited about Easter. I'm excited to hear what you guys have to do or get to engage with us and to make us better as you share what God is doing in and through you, and as we kind of get curious with that and share together in this kind of really cool digital space. So have an incredible day. I can't wait to hear what you're going to share with the chat, and cannot wait for us to walk together through Passover on the 15th and through Easter on the 17th. Have an incredible day, and we will see you next week.